Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Plain Talk. I'm your host, AJ Rivera, and today I'm joined by Governor candidate Lou Burdette. Mr. Burdette, how are you doing today?
Hey, AJ, thanks for having me.
Of course, we're excited to get to know you a little bit and get to have you on our show.
I love being in Auburn. I grew up close to here.
Well, let's just dive right on into the questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your campaign, and why you're running for governor.
I appreciate that. I did. I grew up about 40 miles from here in Roanoke, Alabama. I love this part of the state. Wouldn't give anything for growing up with small town values, and it was just a great experience. I have a brother and a sister that came to Auburn, and my other sister and I went to Alabama, so we treated the family fairly, right? I'm running for governor because I so dearly love this state. I've lived here my whole life, and my whole life we've been at the bottom of the list of education, health care, crimes in prisons. And I was just looking around and I just thought, we gotta have change in this state. And as I've been out campaigning, that's what everybody's telling me, Lou, we're just so desperate for change. We want to move this state forward. And I'm the political outsider to go to Montgomery, change things up, turn it upside down, and let's be a disruptor and see how much we can get done in 4 years down there.
Well, I know you labeled a bit of the political issues that are very pertinent to Alabamians, especially right now. Let's go on into some of those issues. So, like you said, looking at education with Alabama, we are consistently at the bottom across the nation. According to U.S. News, pre-K through 12th grade is ranked 45th nationally, and higher education with our colleges is ranked 39th. So, the majority of our audience is college students. We're a college news station. If elected governor, what would you do to reform education within our state?
Yeah, we got to have change in education. We are 52nd in math. And some of the rankings have us 47th overall. Some of them have us 45th. Some of them have 48th. Regardless, we're at the bottom. And I look at math and say, how in the world can we be 52nd behind District of Columbia and Puerto Rico? Another reason that I'm running for governor, because education's got to be the #1 priority in our state until we get it right. Not just one legislative session. It's got to be first year after year until we are making progress, until we see that education's improving in Alabama. A few things that we need to do. We need to take out Common Core. Common Core has got to go. That's the reason we're 52nd in math. There's a bill in Montgomery right now to hire 700 math coaches, which are teachers, to teach math teachers in Alabama how to teach Common Core. So I'm a common sense business guy. That makes no sense to me. How we would continue to teach Common Core, we're at the bottom, and that's got to change. Florida did it, immediately they went up, in education. So that's got to be the first thing. I'm for school choice. School choice doesn't work everywhere. It works in some urban areas, but in some rural areas like where I grew up, parents can't drive to the next county over. So, school choice is important in some areas. I'm for school choice. I'm also for a child's education savings account so that an education fund goes in specifically for each child, not for the parents' use, but for the child's use, for the parents to choose where they want their child to go to school. So if it's a public school, a private school, a charter school, homeschool, they can make that educational choice for their child, but it can only strictly be used for educational purposes. I think we got to budget right. That's another huge issue in Alabama. We have 93% earmarking. That means that before we ever start budgeting every year in Alabama, 93% of our budget is already spoken for. There's no flexibility on how to spend our money. A lot of it does go to education, but it's not budgeted correctly. It's not budgeted so that the right amount of funds are in the right buckets, particularly for classroom use, what resources that teachers need in the classroom. So that's something else we got to work to change in the area of education. And the last thing, because I could go on and on about education, because it's so important, but we have 26 community colleges around Alabama, one very close here. And I think we need to retool our community colleges, give them more resources for career tech kind of jobs. Not everybody needs to go to a four-year school, right? When you have that opportunity, and that's a great career path, but there's also great career paths for other young people. And having dual enrollment in high school, I think dual enrollment is key, not just in some school systems, but statewide. If we do all of those things, and we're using our community colleges and dual enrollment to get young people on a career path, career tech kinds of jobs, medical tech, even electricians, welding, plumbing, HVAC technician, robotics, all of those kind of careers that are great careers. I was meeting with the mayor of Huntsville about 6 weeks ago, and we were talking about jobs. And to get better jobs, we got to have better education. And Mazda plant is a huge plant that just went up in the Huntsville area. And he said, we got 400 openings at Mazda, $50,000 or $60,000 jobs, really good jobs, but people can't read at third or fourth grade level to fill out the application. That's heartbreaking. 400 jobs that are really good, high-paying jobs. So that's the final area, is we got to have literacy programs that work to get kids caught up in reading, so that they can get good jobs like that.
Absolutely.
So education's an important area. I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that because it's got to be the number one issue and priority, and we don't have that in Alabama. And I feel like, AJ, that I'm the only one talking about issues, that everybody else in the race seems to be talking about other things. But let's talk about, I'm so glad you're asking about issues to move Alabama forward.
So one of the ways that, many legislators have proposed funding for education reform is through introducing gambling bills and introducing the Alabama lottery. That two of which bills have been brought up in Montgomery recently. The Alabama Educational Lottery, as it's being called, is obviously intended to help pay for these reforms, similar to what Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida have instituted in their states. What are your thoughts on gambling and the lottery being brought to Alabama? I
think it ought to be two different bills. There is one that they call a simple lottery bill, which is not really simple. So I'll address casino gambling first. I'm 100% against expanding casino gambling in Alabama. I've worked in a nonprofit in Birmingham for the last 19 years, and I've seen human trafficking conditions. Our residents have been a part of that and have escaped that. Sex trafficking, other addiction issues, mental health issues connected to gambling, burdens on law enforcement, organized crime, drug trafficking. All of those things follow casino gambling industry. And, AJ, just follow the money, right? Millions of dollars are being poured into lobbying for expanding gambling in Alabama. I'm against that. Lottery, to me, is a completely different issue and should be separated. But right now, what they're debating right now is a big omnibus gambling bill that includes lottery. There is one other one that's trying to get introduced that's a separate lottery bill. It's just, they make it very complicated in Montgomery. If there really were a simple lottery bill that was a strict use only for education, well-defined definition of education, then I would like to look at that. But that's not what we have right now. They're calling it a simple lottery bill, and it's got all these vague definitions of what education is, and that's not what Alabamians want. Alabamians, about 60 or 70% of Alabamians may favor a lottery, if it was a strict use, and let's just say it goes for classroom education, and if it was that and it was a strict use, then I would be for it.
All righty. Well, I know a lot of my friends, it's March right now. We're on the end of March Madness. Where does sports betting fall into, at least your views on this?
Usually that's a part of, the casino gambling world. Again, really sports betting, you could segment it away as its own thing also. It hasn't been so far. I think they're going to wrap it. What the casino gambling industry wants to do, and that's why I say there's millions being poured into that through PACs that we've never heard of, going into politicians' coffers, something I stand very much against. I'd love to talk about corruption in a minute, because it is corrupt. To have that kind of money flowing in to support expanding gambling, because it's a legalized system of payoffs of favor and influence in Montgomery, and that's why I'm against it. And so sports betting is going to be part of a casino gambling bill. They're not going to separate that out. I don't really think that you're going to get a lottery bill that's separate either, the way it looks right now. But we'll see. They're going to wrap it all together as one big bill. They're going to try to pass, and that's what they're spending millions of dollars to try to do. And that's probably going to be the direction of what we end up voting on one way or the other in the legislature.
Well, you kind of hinted at our next topic. Let's move into corruption. Most Alabamians obviously are against corruption in their government officials. If elected governor, what would you do to fight corruption within the state?
First thing we got to do, AJ, is we got to have complete transparency on the way campaign contributions are made. We are one of only 5 states, that allows unlimited campaign contributions. That's wrong. Unlimited. So that's why we have millions of dollars that's flowing in through all of these PACs that we've never heard of from all over everywhere. And it is a legalized payoff system that only buys favor and influence in Montgomery, and it's got to stop. Wealthy individuals hide behind that, big corporations hide behind that, because they know they can funnel all this unlimited money in any direction they want to pass all of these kinds of bills that Alabamians don't want. And so there's got to be complete transparency on the way campaign donations are given in Alabama. There's also got to be a limit. I've self-imposed a $10,000 limit on contributions that I'll take for our campaign. People said, Lou, you're crazy. That's not a level playing field. That's not fair to limit yourself to $10,000 when other folks are getting millions. Kay Ivy's gotten $5.3 million in campaign contributions, greater than $10,000 since 2017. So that's not a level playing field. But you know what? I put a stake in the ground and said, that's the right thing to do. You got to walk the walk, right? So if I'm going to run on limiting campaign contributions, then I need to limit it for our campaign and say, this is the right approach. This is the right thing to do. And that's the kind of governor I want to be. I want to do what's right. I want to stand for what's right. And let's do it on the front end, even though it hurts us raising money to limit. Because I've had people say, oh, Lou, I would have given you $250,000. I would have given you $100,000. But that's just not right. One of my opponents has already taken one donation for $1 million. And that's common in Alabama because we allow unlimited campaign contributions. The last point of cleaning up corruption in Montgomery is we got to have term limits. That it wasn't meant to be a lifetime job. It was supposed to be public service, right? That's what you study in school. It's supposed to be public service. It just wasn't meant to be a lifetime job. And I say, thank God I'm not a politician. I've spent my whole life, my whole career with a real job in the real world. Working 13 years at Books A Million, working 19 years at a Christian nonprofit in Birmingham called King's Home. I'm so proud of my business background and business experience to be a common sense business leader, which I truly believe that we need in Montgomery, to fight corruption, stand up for what's right. We are the fourth most politically corrupt state in America. Well, that's heartbreaking. There hadn't been a decade in my lifetime that a politician hadn't gone to jail, resigned because of ethics violations, or been indicted. The most recent was 4 years ago. So that culture needs to change in Montgomery.
Mm-hmm. So another kind of big topic that a lot of Alabamians have been pretty vocal about is the recent gas tax hike in 2019. So Governor Kay Ivey announced her Rebuild Alabama Infrastructure Plan, and a part of this plan to help fund it was a 10-cent hike over the past 3 years that we have seen. In the state, this has brought up the average gas price on top of inflation that we've seen. The average gas price in the state is up over $4, and the average gas price of diesel is over $5. If elected governor, what would be your approach to just the current gas situation, infrastructure, and inflation?
Now, you're really going to get me wound up now. You know, because I thought true conservatives were supposed to stand for less taxes and less government. In 2018, when the current governor ran, she didn't debate, which was a huge disservice to Alabamians. I think true leaders should be out front. True leaders should debate. True leaders shouldn't be fearful of being in front of people. And so she never debated on increasing our gas taxes 56%. 56%. You know, never campaigned on raising our gas prices 56%. And then what was the first thing that she did when she was elected? It was a payoff to the road building associated, to the road builders. That's all it was. It was a promise that there was going to be all this money, new money poured into building. Now, we all want better roads and bridges, right? All of us do. But why don't we do it with less government and not raising taxes? And you know what? I'm glad you brought up those Rebuild Alabama signs, because it just really frustrates me to see those signs all that cost, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands of dollars to put up all over Alabama, because you see them everywhere. Rebuild Alabama. So when politicians in Montgomery for the last 40 years haven't planned correctly, haven't budgeted correctly, and we need better roads and bridges, then what's their solution? To saddle us with a 56% gas tax increase. That, to me, is 100% wrong. She should have campaigned on it. She should have debated the issue, and she shouldn't have slid it in the first thing that she did when she was elected governor in 2019. And what she should do today is there should be a moratorium on that tax. Just like you said, gas prices are now up over $4 a gallon, well over $4 in most places. In some conservative states, Republican governors have put a moratorium on their state gas taxes. We don't even hear that mentioned in Alabama. That would be the right thing to do. And I want to, and not only that, this 56% gas tax increase, it's a forever tax. It never stops, AJ. Every 2 years, forever, for the rest of your life, you're going to pay 1 cent more every 2 years. Again, where is there common sense in even passing a tax like that there's not a cap on somewhere? So the first thing I'm going to do as governor, I'm going to cap it, and I'm going to work to repeal it and put that money back in the pockets of Alabamians. It's about $400 or $500 a year extra taxes that Alabamians are paying per vehicle. I want to put that money back in Alabamians' pockets and work to repeal that gas tax. And then let's pay for it with less government and less taxes. I want to repeal the grocery tax also. You know, we've had $770 million in COVID money that came in that they allocated about 6 weeks ago. Why didn't we cap the gas tax then with that $770 million? New money, and we're getting another billion in June. Why don't we repeal the grocery tax with that $770 million or the $1 billion that's coming in? That would help all Alabamians, but we don't ever have common sense discussions on things like that.
So, you talk a lot about, your policies compared to current Governor Kay Ivey. This is still a very crowded race. With the Republicans, we have a total of 9 Republican candidates that are running. What separates you and your policies from other Republicans?
I'm a complete outsider. My name's never been on a ballot. I've never run for any kind of public office. I say I am a true outsider that's a common sense business person. I grew up, like I mentioned at the very beginning, a little small East Alabama town called Roanoke. My dad owned a small town grocery store. I'm a huge defender of small business. Small business would never be closed again in Alabama. I'm 100% against mandates. I'm for freedom. So that's a big difference with me and the other folks. But just being that true political outsider that is a common sense business person, learning business from the feet of my dad, sacking groceries in his store from a very, very early age. And then I know that was helped me be successful at Books A Million, working there for 13 years, being chief operating officer. Books A Million, when I started with them, wasn't even called Books A Million. It was we hadn't even opened our first superstore at that time. And so I learned more in 13 years at Books A Million, taking a company public, 2 or 3 acquisitions while I was there. We grew from $26 million in volume to $250 million in volume across 16 states, about 300 employees to 3,000 employees. So I know how to manage people. I know how to manage a big budget, a big business. Managing this state is big business, and I have that kind of experience. But I also have experience in the nonprofit arena, helping abused youth and moms and kids, and that's what I've done for the last 19 years. And so I've seen our residents come out of domestic violence, homelessness, poverty, some of the most horrific circumstances that we can imagine. And what that's helped me to realize is how much I want to help all Alabamians, how I am for all Alabamians, to have a message of unity, to say, hey, let's come together. Let's work to move this state forward all together. Because I remember a time when we could sit down, Democrats, Republicans, independents, and we could sit down and respect each other. We could listen to each other. And I don't see that anymore. I think there's 5% or 10% over here and 5% or 10% over here, and they want to keep us divided and they want to keep us stirred up. And I think there's 80 or 90% of us that want to move this state forward and work for change, and that's what I represent.
Well, Mr. Burdette, is there anything else that you'd like to add, anything you'd like to say to our audience?
Oh, yeah, check me out, lewin22.com. Check me out on social media. Follow me on social media. Check out my story. When I worked at my dad's store when I was 15 years old, I was kidnapped, leaving his store, shot, stabbed, thrown in a well to die. And what that experience taught me, what God taught me from that experience in getting me out of that well, is to be a fighter, to have determination, to have perseverance. And that's really my message in this campaign, is I have such determination to move this state forward. Hey, AJ, I tell everybody, that when we're ranked 52nd in math and 45th in healthcare, rural healthcare, 43rd in crimes and prisons, if any of our football coaches were ranked, 52nd, 45th, 43rd, this state would be coming apart, wouldn't they? We so dearly love our football in this state, and we wouldn't tolerate it from our coaches for 1 second, would we, at the end of a season? They wouldn't have a job. Well, I think the same thing needs to happen in Montgomery, that we have the same performance, the same bottom rankings, not year after year, decade after decade, my whole life. And we need change in Montgomery. That's what I'm working for. So yes, check me out, lewin22.com. Follow me on social media, and I look forward to meeting more of your audience all across this state as I'm out campaigning. Thanks for having me.
Well, Mr. Burdette, I'm so glad that you were able to take some time and sit down with us, but unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today for Plain Talk. For all of you watching at home, make sure to keep in touch with Eagle Eye. We'll be meeting with all sorts of different governor candidates as well as senatorial candidates over the next coming weeks. So make sure to follow us on our social media at Eagle Eye TV and check out our website, eagleeyeauburn.com. I'm AJ Rivera and War Eagle.